Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. I'm Crina Mustafa alongside Calvin Wetzel. We are officially a month into the WNBA season. It is episode 40 of Coast to Coast. So we got week 4, episode 40, a lot of fours right on the dot, which I love. We got a lot to get into today. We're going to do a little bit of a rookie roundup, check up on some of the top rookies in the league, plus some special shout outs as well. Then we'll get into the Phoenix Mercury and what we've liked about them, and specifically Kahleah Copper this week. And lastly, we'll give you our games to watch and, of course, our team of the week. So stay tuned to find out who that is this week. Cal, you ready?
I am ready, but I feel like I just need to ask you, are you ready?
Oh, wow. Look at you. You're turning the tables.
You've been doing so much this week.
I'm very ready. Yeah, I'm wearing my, if you're on YouTube, and this is my weekly YouTube plug. If you're annoyed of it, maybe you should be subscribed to our channel. I'm wearing it's not women's basketball, it's just basketball sweatshirt from Make Way when they released it, I think like 2 years ago now, which is kind of wild to think about, but it is literally my favorite thing to wear and a really, really good indication of some of our conversations that are about to happen today and why, yes, I am very much ready for this podcast episode because we've got a lot to get into. And with that, we'll start with our headline of the week, which is our rookie roundup. We're going to go through a bunch of the rookies. We'll go through Caitlin Clark, Cam Brink, Rukia Jackson, go into the Camila Cardoso, Angel Reese duo, and more players as well. But let's start with the number 1 pick, of course. By the way, that's why we're doing this in a certain order. It's not like we're choosing one over the other. We're going to the order of the draft picks from 1 all the way down. Obviously won't hit on all of them because not all of the top 10 picks are playing this season, but we'll start with Caitlin Clark. The Fever are 3-10 on the season as of where we're recording. She's averaging 16.3 points per game, 4.9 rebounds, 6 assists, and 1.5 steals per game. I want to kind of check in with each rookie. And with some of the rookies, I want to check in 2 different ways. One being narrative-wise and one being basketball-wise, because it'd be really hard to ignore the narrative part of this season, especially with some of these players that we're about to talk about, Caitlin being one of them. And I do want to start. We haven't really touched on her too much this season so far on the podcast. That has been on purpose. It's been done on purpose, but we've come to a point now where I feel like we have to address this, and in a way that just feels more nuanced than what I've seen online and on live television, on national television. Cal, let's go narrative. Caitlin Clark, everything that's kind of happened with her being named like the reason for this moment in women's basketball, all of this that's being placed on her, the Olympic snub, oh, she's the one bringing all the attention, all these different things. What are your thoughts on all of this? And like, just your thoughts on this whole like situation, I'll call it.
Like you said, we've tried to focus on the basketball for a very specific reason because a lot of other shows maybe aren't doing that as much. And women's basketball, like it sure says, it's basketball. It's really good. We should be talking about it. So I know we're probably going to make some enemies in the comments saying how we intentionally stay away from these talks. But now that we're here, my biggest contribution to the whole Caitlin Clark narrative thing is, can everyone just chill out? Can everyone just stop being stupid? I'm sorry. There's so many different like angles to all of the stuff when you go back to the Kennedy Carter thing and then the Olympics thing, and there's so many specific storylines and like the first take stuff, and I know you tweeted about that.
Yeah.
Deep breath. Everyone is crazy. We all just need to reel it in because this isn't I like, growth is good. We've talked about this, obviously. More eyeballs, more viewers, more people talking about it. Now we're there. Now we have all the new fans, all the growth. Now maybe the next step is figuring out how to shift the conversations away from some of this ridiculous stuff that I don't know why we need to be talking about, and towards basketball, how Caitlin Clark is playing on the court, because that's what's important. But I get all of the narratives and stuff, and it gets clicks and it's fun to talk about, but I don't know. It's exhausting. I'm exhausted of it, to be honest with you.
I think that's a good way to put it. I think from my perspective, like this is my 4th season covering the W, and so you could joke that I'm on like the last year of my rookie scale deal as a W fan or somebody who's just like aware of the league in general. And so I'm still very much learning as I go. I think everybody is still very much learning as they go. But I think just noticing how things have changed from the first season that I started covering the league to the last couple of years, and now finally this season, where it just feels like everything's changing immensely. And I think you mentioned my tweet about First Take. I think what I've been doing these last 4 weeks is I've just kind of been sitting and observing what's been happening. I didn't want to insert myself in the conversation because I wanted to kind of see different people's perspectives on what was going on. I thought, and I just want to shout out Monica McNutt because I think out of everybody, she's had the most nuanced, well, like spoken, like exactly hitting the nail on the head take about all of this. No pun intended by saying take, first take, that whole thing. But I think she said it the best way. And I think it's unfair, to place all of this on Caitlin Clark. For sure, 1000%. She just wants to play basketball. She's made that clear time and time again. And then I think there's also the issue of like, is she obligated to speak out on the way that her fans and other media members have been acting, on behalf of her almost? And I say that with quotation marks because it's not like she has a direct, like, like connection to this, but it's always Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark. Like that's the buzzword that everybody just gets on when it's very, very clear that none of these people are actually paying attention to the WNBA or to women's basketball overall. And for someone like Stephen A. Smith to get so butthurt when Monica calls him out about his lack of coverage about the W, but Caitlin Clark remains the only key issue that he talks about, or not talks about, that he yells about on his show. Like, I just think that's so wrong, especially when you go the way that he spoke to Drea and to Chene. I think that to me was my final straw. That's when I decided to be like, I need to say something, because watching those clips of him and Shannon pretty much disrespecting and humiliating and going at both Drea and Chene, like, it was really disheartening to watch, especially as a woman. I know that feeling of other men in sport media at your workplace just ganging up on you and thinking that they know better and trying to mansplain what coverage of women's sports should be. And it all just really rubs me the wrong way, and it makes me really sad for them. But I thought they did a great job at standing their ground because they know what they're doing. I think that's the biggest thing that's gotten me about all this. All these like big sport media outlets are now coming in trying to capitalize off of this like increased attention, and they're trying to be like, oh well, we're talking about it now, so you should be happy with the way that we want to talk about it. But no, because we have different standards over here in women's basketball, and I don't think that these sports media outlets who have had coverage for years of their major men's leagues that have included yelling on live television, a lack of analysis, a lack of any sort of nuance when it comes to storytelling of the athletes that they're covering. It's just something to yell about and complain about every single day. That's been the coverage. And now they're upset because we don't accept that for women's basketball coverage. And so sorry for this is going too long. I'm not trying to go on like this whole tangent.
This is not long enough. Keep going.
I think like that's what really bothers me, because it's like we like, and I say we as if I'm like a big part. I'm not. I'm a very small part of it, but like
you are.
Thanks. But you look at like, and I tweeted this too. The season we just had in NCAA women's basketball was one of the most historic ones as of yet. And we saw like Chene, Drea, Elle Duncan, LaChina Robinson, Carolyn Peck, all these broadcasters who have done storytelling and they've done analysis their own way that really connected with audience. Like we saw the numbers, millions of people tuning in for the pre-game show before the actual games start. That shows an interest in, you want to know who's covering the games, you want to know what they're saying. And for someone like Stephen A. Smith, Shannon, whoever, to be like, well, the way you're doing it is not sustainable enough over time, to me just rubs me the wrong way, because why are you telling women that they're going to be severely underpaid when they've been working at a way that is clearly engaging fans and to a lot of people is much better than the way that you do things. I just think it sets a bad precedent with like men's sports and men in general are the default of things, and the way that sports media has acted for so long is supposed to be the standard, when in reality, like, that's not how it works. Things always change. That's the nature of this industry. And people love different sports and they love different leagues for different reasons. And it's not all cookie cutter. So the whole thing has been extremely disappointing because even though these women have been like standing their ground and being super nuanced and still like sticking to their values, it just feels like the other part of this is so loud. And I'm not like not blaming Caitlyn, but it's like just because of one name, people are taking that and running with it because they don't actually care about Caitlyn, if we're really being honest. They don't care about Caitlyn, the player. They're using her name as just like a buzzword to get their own takes, opinions, hidden things like off their chest.
Clicks and views.
Exactly. Because if you really cared about Caitlyn as a player, you would understand that the Fever are still very much in rebuilding mode, and it wouldn't be do all end all. The fact that they're 3-10 makes a lot of sense. You wouldn't be upset that she got, quote, snubbed from the Olympic team, because if we're being real, you don't understand how Olympic teams and international competitions work if you're upset about this. I just think there's a lot here where it's like we've taken one thing and we've ran too far with it, and it's just at a point now where, like you said, it's exhausting. It's exhausting for people who have been here a long time. It's exhausting for people who have been here for a little bit, and I don't know what the change is. I don't know, like I don't know what the answer is. That was a long spiel, but those are my thoughts on the whole situation.
That's an excellent spiel. And if I'm exhausted, I can't imagine how exhausted you or Monica McNutt or any of the women who are doing the work and have been here for so long are sure 100 times as exhausted as I am, listening to men say all this stuff, like you said, like how you should do this and how you should do that. And I just want to say that, like, there's a lot of women in this space that I look up to and respect a lot, and you're one of them. And Monica McNutt's one of them. And I could go on and name so many different women. Drea, Chene, obviously, Tarika Foster Brasby, someone who I love watching her coverage. I don't need to name the whole list because we'll be here forever. But my point of that is that if you are forming opinions on any of these stories and narratives that come up, whether it's with Caitlin Clark, with all the different situations that we talked about, or whether it's anything else going on in the league, and you are doing so without listening to the opinions of all those people I just named and all the other people too first, then you're just doing it wrong. That's just the bottom line. If you're coming in as a man and or a new fan to this league and bringing your opinion that you have without forming it based on, listening to anyone else who knows a lot more than you do, you're just doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And I wish people would stop.
And that's part of why I kind of was trying to remain silent as well too. Like you said, like there are people that have been here a very, very long time. And so like to me, like, yes, I'm sitting back and I'm observing because I want to learn from the people who have been around a while to see what they think, what their perspective is on certain things. And I think it's also important to mention that a large part of the frustration is because this is a league that is predominantly Black women, and Black women also cover the players that play in the league. That is a huge point when it comes to the intersectionality. And we've talked about this issue about the W kind of centering, white players over the last like several years, decades, like however long it's been. And that's an important factor in this. And that's an important factor in the frustration that some of these broadcasters and players are feeling, because I'm sure the players are feeling it too. And the one last thing on this, I know this has gone on for like half the episode as we planned, but the last thing on this that I will say is it feels like everybody is so quick to want to protect Caitlin Clark, where they take things too far and they just stop caring about the rest of the players in the league. Because I saw something today, I think it was Shannon, who said that the Olympics should hire Caitlin as a broadcaster. I'm like, we're doing too much now. Like, why do you feel the need to like look out for this athlete who doesn't know you, is doing just fine on her own? Just for what? Like, just for the discourse? I don't get it. But that's my spiel. It's enough of that. Let's talk about the actual basketball, as we've been doing the last 4 weeks, and as we will for the rest of this podcast as well. A couple more narrative things to come, but that's kind of the big spiel. That's what I get for like harboring all of this for like a month. It just comes out now when we finally talk about it.
I'm glad that all came out because it needed to be said. It really did.
I really hope people take something away from this and like can hear and understand the frustrations within our entire community, because it's very real and I've felt it a lot the last couple of weeks. But anyway, let's get back to the court basketball wise. How do you evaluate Caitlin Clark in her first month of WNBA basketball?
It's been a lot of growing pains, obviously, and to sort of connect it to the narrative because it's not completely separate. Like the people that you said that aren't doing her any favors by trying to, say this and that are putting all this pressure on her and thought she was going to come in and win the MVP. And obviously, on the court, basketball wise, that is not what we've seen. We've not seen Caitlin Clark play at an MVP level or at a top 10 level. And that's okay because you almost never see rookies play at that level. Aaliyah Boston was a borderline top 10 player last year and was a starter in the All-Star game. And that's more of an exception than a rule.
Yeah.
Most rookies don't do that. So that's okay. But I think that we've seen a lot of good things too. I think like, obviously you read off her stat line, on paper. Maybe if you take away the turnovers, that's a pretty good stat line. Turnovers definitely something that she could work on, which I think part of it is just like a speed of the game thing. I think it's anytime you go up a level, high school to college, college to pros, the defenders are faster. There's passes that you were able to make at the previous level that now that's going to get intercepted because that closing speed of that defender is that much quicker. And she's still kind of getting used to that. I think that's why guards maybe take longer than bigs to kind of transition, which we'll probably get onto more in this podcast, is because of that processing speed and that decision making with your passes. So that's the next step for her. But she's already working on that a little bit. I mean, she had 10 turnovers in her debut. She hasn't nearly been at that level since then. She's starting to figure out that maybe some of those advantages that she had in college aren't the same advantages that she's going to have at the pro level. So she's finding new ways to create those advantages. She's developing that chemistry with her teammates, which is a big part of it. When you play 4 years with a lot of the same teammates at Iowa, it's obviously, her last year, there was some turnover, but like she played with Kate Martin for 4 years, Gabby Marshall for 4 years, Monica Sonano for 3 years. There's a lot of time to build up that rapport, and she just hasn't had that yet with some of these teammates, which is part of it too. But all of that is coming. So if you want to look at it through the lens of like the expectations of some of the new fans and people who only followed her at Iowa and haven't watched the WNBA before, then what she's done on the court maybe is disappointing or let down. But if you look at it from a realistic lens of what you could realistically expect out of a rookie, even a really good number 1 overall pick, I think she's been fine. I don't think that it's necessarily been a letdown at all from that perspective.
Yeah, and you talk about the timeline of things, like playing somewhere for years and then you get drafted and then a week later you're starting training camp and then you have like maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks to get kind of acclimated to teammates that are still kind of coming in and out depending on roster cuts, depending on people coming in later. And then you're starting to get used to playing in your new like home arena until that becomes a little bit more comfortable. It's all these different factors. So a month into the season is like our like very early sample size into what she's going to continue into to develop into. And it's a very, very important point. Especially in a situation like the Indiana Fever, where, like I said, they're very much in a rebuild. And so it's going to take some time. It's going to take some more changes too, because they're not in their final form yet. And we have yet to see what that might look like. But yeah, I think all in all, she's been doing not too bad on the court. She'll be fine. And I think that Olympic break is going to be helpful for her, more helpful than people realize or are outraged about. But let's move on to the LA Sparks and their rookie duo there, Cam Brink, Rakia Jackson. we saw their chemistry at the draft. It would be like, how great would it be if these two got drafted? And that has followed through in their tenure with the Sparks so far. Sparks, actually, when I was originally writing the show notes for this episode, they were playing against the Aces and they ended up winning that game. So a huge win for the LA Sparks, who have kind of been up and down this season so far, which feels like a very on brand thing to say about the LA Sparks, especially in this current, like, without NECA phase of things. Cam Brink, we'll start on her first. She hit a career high 21 points against the Wings, and she also had a 10-10 double-double against them when they played last week. She had 8 points, I think, against the Aces, but let's check in with her narrative-wise and basketball-wise, because to me, this is also another interesting situation where she's gone on podcasts and she's gone and done interviews where she has explicitly talked about some of the things that other people have had frustrations with from Caitlin that she hasn't necessarily touched on when it comes to, there was one quote that she had that she's not stopping until she makes the W more iconic than it already is. And a point of emphasis that Cam's hit in a bunch of interviews is kind of like honoring the people that came before her, which Caitlin's done the exact same thing as well too. I think a lot of the rookies have been really good at actually doing that, which is nice to see, just like acknowledging the history of the W and the players that kind of pave the way for them now to kind of usher in this new wave of WNBA. But she kind of hits on a lot of things. She acknowledges that there's a lot of diverse people, especially when you look at the LA Sparks too. You have Lasia Clarendon, who identifies as she, he, and they. So they're non-binary. You have other players. It's a league that is majority LGBTQ plus. Like, they're Black women, like I said earlier, and kind of that intersectionality is something that Cam has talked about quite a bit, and I think a lot of people have really respected her for that. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how she's kind of composed herself during this WNBA season and what we've seen from her, both on the court, honestly, and off the court, just overall, with Cam in LA.
Well, to start with the narrative stuff and off the court, I mean, a lot of the stuff you mentioned, I think has been fantastic from her and in the podcasts and the interviews and different things where she's talked about, I think it was her who said kind of what we were just saying about Caitlin Clark with rookies, like, hey, we're rookies. It's going to take time. Sometimes you're going to have a good game and sometimes you're going to get welcome to the league by Tina Charles. And it's just how it goes. And
yeah,
that's okay. You got to give us time. You got to let us develop a little bit. And then all of the stuff about, like you said, the privileges that she's been really open about, like, hey, I look more feminine, I fit some of these stereotypical boxes, but some of my teammates and some of the people in this league don't, and that's okay. Everybody's their own person, and we should be lifting up everybody for who they are, and the fact that she gets some of the privileges from that and from people who look like her but really wants to uplift people who don't. I think that was really cool from her when I saw that the other day. So I'm becoming more and more a fan of Cam Brink. I think every time I see something like that, in basketball wise, obviously, she's a big, and a lot of these players we talk about are. So some of the stuff is translating a little bit quicker. She is shooting the three more than she did in college, which is
yes,
cool to
she
see,
is.
and she's
Mm-hmm.
going to continue.
She went 3 of 6 in that career high night when she had 21 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's only going to continue to improve and become an even bigger part of her game. And at 6'4", just the ability to move like that up and down the court and across the court. She had a switch.
That is her correct height, by the way. Just want to say, I know there's a conspiracy about her height. I stood next to her in Edmonton. She is definitely
Did you measure
not.
her? Did you bust out the measuring tape?
No, but I'm like, I'm 5'8", so I can like kind of tell when people are like, taller or not when they say they are. She's definitely not taller than 6'5". Like, I'm sorry. She just looks taller on TV. I feel like we talked about this already, but I just wanted to mention it one more time.
I trust you more than I trust any conspiracy on that. I should have clipped this one. I got another couple clips coming later, but that Aces game that you mentioned, she had a switch on Tip Hayes and kind of just took away the drive, which I think it really like epitomizes. Obviously, she's great as a help defender. She's racking up a lot of blocks, but also just her ability to guard even smaller players in space. I think already people talk about 3-and-D. People use that term for wings usually, but I think of a player like Cam Brink sort of as a 3-and-D as well, especially when the three becomes a bigger part of her game. As someone who can step out and knock the three, and and play defense both as a rim protector and just like ball screen defense, being able to switch. So I'm really excited to watch her develop. I think she's been great this year.
I like that. She was also named to the 3x3 USA Olympic team, so she will be an Olympian. And I just want to say her reaction video was so cute. All of the reaction videos have been really well done. It's been really cool to see the reactions. You can see how much this moment kind of means to them. So I just didn't want to touch on that too. And like even Cam, she took the video and she like made it into a TikTok too. It was she put like sad music over it, but it was like, look at my reaction. And it was very wholesome. But yeah, that's Cam so far. I think she's translated pretty well, all things considered. And yeah, we talked about kind of the difference between bigs and guards and how you're going to see them translate to the league. Another player on the Sparks, Kahleah Jackson, did want to shout out Mark Schindler's video that he did on her on his YouTube channel. Make sure you check that out. Let's check in with Kahleah Jackson. What have your thoughts been on her a month into the season with how she's translated?
She's been phenomenal. I love what Mark said on that video about you can tell, it's really important when the defense cares about you and the defense cares about what you're doing. That's kind of what sets you apart. If the game plan and the scouting is taking you into account on the offensive end, you're doing something right. And that's been the case with Kahleah. And the other night down the stretch, if you want to pull up these clips in that Aces win that you mentioned, that she took over. Right now they're down 4 with 4 minutes left. Look at that finish. Now they're up 2 with under 2 minutes left. She puts them up 4 right here with the and one, and then this one too. I mean, that's good defense. None of these are bad defense. Those were all well defended. But when you have the size that she has and the ability to finish and hit tough shots like that, it's tough because all of those were good defense, but all of those were defenders who are smaller than her. I think Alicia Clark was the first one. Kate Martin was one of those, and so she just has the ability to finish over people and finish contested shots, and we saw that down the stretch in really a crucial moment. Like, how about stepping up not only to make plays like that, but in that moment when you have the best team in the league, maybe not right now without Chelsea Gray, but the 2-time defending champions on the ropes in a crunch time situation, and just to have nerves of steel like that, I was very impressed. So I think she's coming on fast.
Yeah, I think what's impressed me the most is just like her control. Like you can see it in those shots. I think that's something that I always look out for when it comes to rookies and seeing how they kind of do in their debuts. So yeah, totally agree with you. Those are some really tough shots to make. She really stepped up to the moment, and that was a huge win for the Sparks over the Aces. All right, let's go to another rookie duo in Chicago. That's Kamilla Cardoso and Angel Reese. Kamilla only came back over the last week or so after starting the season with that shoulder injury. But she had 13 and 15 in their most recent game against Atlanta. Her potential, can we talk about it? What do you see for her, even in just this like short period of time that she's played?
Her potential is so high, literally at 6'7", and figuratively.
Is it the sky? Is her potential
It
in the
is.
sky?
It is. It is. It is sky high. That is
There we go.
how
There we
high
go.
her
We got it. We
potential
got
is.
it.
We got there. I was so impressed right away, honestly, from that very first game when she came back, and seeing kind of the chemistry that she had with some of the guards on her team. I think Kennedy Carter in particular, but really all of them. And being able to throw and catch those passes high enough where only she could get it, because that's part of being 6'7", and part of playing with someone who's 6'7" is using that height. And I think there were so many times when, again, like what we just saw, in the last clips, like the defense wasn't bad, but when you're 6'7", sometimes good defense, if you use it and if you put the ball in the right spot, she's going to be able to go up and get it and just lay it in. And a lot of her points came from that. So to have that right away was really cool. It's only going to get better. And I loved from her guards as well, setting her up like that. But in addition to all that, like the offensive rebounding, once we get to Angel Reese in a minute, I'm going to talk more about that because we got a cool stat. We have to get, it's the Her Hoop Stats podcast. We can't get out of here without at least one stat. So I'm going to dangle it for a second.
It's a good day when Cal has a stat on the podcast.
Let's go. The offensive rebounding has been phenomenal, and we're about to talk about it in just a minute with both of them.
Yeah, let's get to it then. Let's talk Angel Reese because I'm very excited to hear this stat. She has been averaging nearly a double-double the last time I checked, which is very, very impressive. what has been so cool to see about Angel 1 month into the season?
I think in addition to just, it being a little bit easier to translate to the next level faster as a big, I think Angel in particular is a great example to me of how rebounding and effort are things that really translate right away. And some things don't. Obviously, her shooting percentages are a lot lower than what they were in college, but her rebounding numbers are through the roof because that's effort and that's translatable right off the bat. And that's what we're seeing. She leads the league in offensive rebounding as a rookie. That's incredible.
Say that's
And
pretty good.
to bust out the stats, so she and Cardoso, first off, they're first and second, respectively, in the league right now in offensive rebounds per 40 minutes, which is incredible, even on a small sample to have the same front court have the top two. But also, so they're both averaging 6 plus, at least 6 offensive rebounds for 40 minutes. There's only 2 players in WNBA history who have done that playing at least 300 minutes. Yolanda Griffith in 2001, over 2 decades ago, and Tierra McCowan a couple years ago in 2022. So Angel Reese is on pace. Her next game, she will get to 300 minutes. And obviously, Cardoso's got a ways to go because she just came back a few weeks ago. But if they can keep up this pace all season, or if even one of them can, they will join elite offensive rebounding company in this league's history. And that just makes the Sky front court ridiculously tough to go up against because even on their worst shooting nights for the Sky team, there's going to be 2 players there to clean it up, which I don't know how you stop that. It's been incredible.
Can I say something? I didn't exist in 2001. There's some food for thought. I don't know.
Tierra McCowan is the only one in your lifetime to do this.
Yeah, just to put that in perspective for people, just to add some extra like oomph to that stat, one of the co-hosts didn't exist for one of the players in the previous one set. But yeah, that's Angel Reese for you so far this season. Do you want to talk about her narrative wise? Because I think that's an important part of the conversation too. I'll let you go, Cal, but I just want to say I think she's been great, and I know you're going to echo this too. I think she's been very composed, and I think everything that she said has been like quote unquote like right. I think she's handled the questions that have come at her very well. She's handled them better than I could ever handle any questions, the way that some of these get thrown around. And especially with the way that, like we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, the way things have changed so quickly and the way buzzwords get thrown around all the time, I think she's maintained her composure while also like standing up for herself as well too, because she very much deserves to be a part of the conversation. But yeah, what are your thoughts on how Angel's kind of handled herself with the media this season and kind of this whole influx of just like crazy emotions that have come with all of this extra coverage?
I think she's done an exceptional job, and it's really exactly what you said, especially the second part for me that she hasn't sacrificed because, like you said, she has answered all the questions and handled everything in a very professional way, not a combative way, combative, whatever that word is.
You're asking the wrong person. I can't confirm.
Someone can look it up. But she has done all of that without sacrificing who she is. She's so unapologetic and so herself all the time, no matter what setting she's in and who she's talking to in the media or on the court, off the court. And she does both. She blends both. She finds that balance, which is so hard to do. I think it's so easy to tip way too far in one direction or the other. And honestly, in life for any of us, not just someone who is well known and has a huge platform and is in front of microphones all the time, but I think for anyone, it's so easy to just kind of go on one side or the other of that. But I think she strikes the balance perfectly, and it's been really impressive and a breath of fresh air.
I definitely agree with that. All right, let's do some quick hitters on some of these other rookies to give them a shout out. Quick thoughts on JC Sheldon and how that experiment with the Dallas Wings has been going. I know a large part of the conversation so far has been the way that guards versus bigs translate to the league. I know you have some thoughts on that and how she's kind of been adjusting, I would say, so far.
Yeah, I just think she's another one that people need to give some time because again, everyone ahead of her on this list, besides Caitlin Clark, is basically a big. Rakia is more of like a big wing, but she's the next like sort of true guard, a true point guard on this list, and it's going to take her some time. That's how it works. So obviously, it hasn't clicked right away yet in Dallas, and part of that too is things aren't going as well for the team with the injuries of Satu and then now
Yeah.
Natasha Howard. Arike has had to carry a crazy load for them, but I don't. The Wings are giving her like 10 minutes a game, and I'm fine with that. You got to give her some time to develop, obviously, and see the court and kind of learn some of the stuff the hard way, but you also are trying to win too. So you're not gonna put your rookie, although they are starting a rookie at point guard as well. Uzun, a
A
veteran
veteran
rookie.
rookie.
We're about to talk about
Jinx.
veteran rookie. Yes,
It was bound to happen.
but I think JC's gonna be all right, and I think this is part of the process.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of these rookies, honestly, like we're a month into the season, and a lot of them have taken some time to adjust, and they're not done adjusting. Aaliyah Edwards is another one who I want to hit on real quick with the Washington Mystics. She had a career week last week as well. She had 23 points and 14 rebounds, but the Mystics haven't won a game yet. And so, like, it's all so relative. Aaliyah started out the season a little bit slow, to be honest, but that's how it goes. That's how we've talked about it. And now it seems like she's getting more comfortable with every single game. Um, I think it was like one of the Mystics like early games against the Connecticut Sun where Aaliyah got blocked by Olivia Nelson Ododa like twice in a game, and they were calling it Husky on Husky crime. And I'm just sitting there going, oh my god, this is so painful. But it takes time. It really takes time. And like it's been nice to see her get way more comfortable in her role. And that's like what we're talking about with all these rookies. Like there's just so many factors that go into it. So yeah, really, really like what Aaliyah is doing.
By
There
the way,
wasn't
as
yeah.
we're recording this, the Mystics are up 12 in the third quarter on the Dream. So by the time you're listening to this, they may or may not have their first win. We shall see.
Good catch. Hopefully we just gave them some good luck. Because I would like to see them get their first win of the season. No shade to Atlanta, but it's just really hard to be a team that's like 0-9 or whatever their record is right now. So rooting for Aaliyah, rooting for the Mystics. Another rookie, Alyssa Peely. A lot of these rookies have hit like really good, like 20 plus career highs in the last week or so, which has kind of been interesting to see. She had 20 points against the Mercury, 4 of 4 from 3. What have you thought about Alyssa Peely's kind of development? Because she's another rookie that, started out a little bit, slower and is kind of getting more comfortable. It's still a little bit up and down, but what have your thoughts been on Peely so far?
Yeah, she hasn't played a ton, obviously, because she's playing on a really, really good team, a Lynx team that has been one of the best stories of this season. So a lot of good players ahead of her. I don't think she's played 10 minutes in a game yet, with the exception of that one game that you brought up, and that was
Yeah.
the perfect situation for her. Obviously, being a blowout and being against the Mercury without Brittany Griner, so she was able to defensively be on Natasha Mack, and she took full advantage of that situation and just completely went off, which was so fun to see. And I think we talked when she was at Utah on this pod about like just the ability for some players to, no matter what else you can or can't do in a basketball court, just to put the ball in the hoop from anywhere, from three, from around the rim, from anywhere on the court, just put the ball in the hoop. I don't know. It's just hand-eye coordination or something. I feel like those are the people who are probably good at like darts and horseshoes and all that stuff too, or whatever.
Have you seen her? I feel like she could be a football player too. Like, did you see her
She
like
probably would be
throw
a
that
great quarterback.
that half court shot with like one arm? She did it so effortlessly, and I was like, "What on earth, girl? Like, that's crazy."
Yes, that game, we saw glimpses of exactly that, and I'm sure there's only gonna be more to come.
Yeah. Just saying, Alyssa Peely, she got quite the arm. She might go up against Kelsey Plum with the t-shirt throwing into the crowd. She might be able to compete. Just saying. We can make that an event at All-Star. Who knows? But we'll see. We'll see.
I'm in.
All right. Last rookie before we give some more shout outs. Markeisha Davis with the New York Liberty. I think you and I are both kind of on the same page where we'd like to see her get some more minutes. However, we do understand that the Liberty are just like on fire right now. They're in that win now mode. They're kind of doing what feels right, what's working. But what are your kind of thoughts on her so far and what you would like to see?
Yeah, you would like to see her get a little bit more run and some of the blowouts, maybe, obviously, just to kind of build that rapport development. But like you said, Liberty are fully selling out in win now mode right now. So I get it. I do understand. Obviously, she's pretty buried on that depth chart. But in very, very short stints, especially in those blowouts back to back against Indiana and Washington, I have liked what I've seen from her.
For sure. Last two rookies that we want to shout out: Julie Van Loo, Kate Martin. Let's go, Cal. Hit it.
Julie Van Loo, another veteran rookie. I love the veteran rookies in this league. This year, the last few years, she's obviously been a great player internationally for quite a while. If anyone follows ball overseas, so it's really cool to kind of see her get her opportunity and thrive over here. But to me, I think veteran rookies, when you talk about her and Uzun and Rebecca Gardner, Christy Wallace, whoever you want to look at the last few years, they're almost always guards, which to me speaks to the same thing about how guards just take a little bit longer to translate because a lot of them end up maybe not being in the league right away. They play overseas, they develop, and then eventually they get good enough and they come over here. So that's what we've seen with her. But with Kate Martin, is there a cooler story in the league right now than Kate Martin? Less than 2 months ago, at this moment, I don't know what you thought. I don't know what most people thought. I don't think a lot of people thought that she was going to make a team. Maybe, someone take a shot at her late third round. I don't think a lot of people knew whether she'd get drafted or not. Obviously, she was at the draft, not as a quote unquote draftee, just as a fan and a friend of Caitlin Clark. She ends up getting drafted in the second round. Still not sure if she's going to make the team. She ends up making the team. Still not sure how much she's going to play. And all of a sudden, she's the sixth player. Obviously, injuries have a part in that, but she's the sixth player on the back-to-back defending champs. And then Jackie gets sick, and she's starting a game for the back-to-back champs. Unbelievable story. And she's really, really done a terrific job with them, I think. And she's the perfect player for it when you think about it, because she's such a good complementary piece. That's why she works so well with Caitlin Clark. She doesn't need the ball. She doesn't have to be a star. She does all the little things. She defends. She rebounds. She's exactly the type of player who can play really well with stars. And she did it at Iowa, and now she's doing it in Las Vegas. And I just love seeing it. And I love watching her play and watching her thrive.
So we're basically getting the Kate Martin movie sometime in the next couple of years.
We
right?
need it.
Like,
We need
I
it.
feel like we need it. I feel like it's been like it's the coolest story, and I'm like, this literally could be a movie. Like you have the buildup, you have the plot twist, you have just like the main character succeeding. Yeah, it's kind of wild. But I do like what you said about her being complimentary. I think those are some of my favorite types of players when it comes to the WNBA as well too, and just like basketball in general. Like those players that can just slot in and play their role well to just make the team overall better are so important. And the fact that the Las Vegas Aces have her and that she's getting this time while they are injured, sick, whatever it is, this is going to pay off for them in the long run. This is going to pay off for them when we get to the playoffs. And everybody last year was like, oh, questions about the depth, questions about players playing for 40 minutes. Well, look at who they're developing so that they could slot in those players when everybody is back and everybody is healthy. I think that's something to keep an eye on as the season kind of continues, especially because the Aces are like 5-4 right now, and people are kind of worried. But I feel like as soon as we get to the halfway mark of the season, that's going to change very quickly, especially after the Olympics. We'll see what happens. There's 4 Aces on the USA roster. That, like, you cannot say like how important that is to their chemistry as a team.
It's amazing. And today you saw the report that Chelsea Gray is expecting to be back by the Olympic break. So after the Olympic break, hopefully the Aces do have their full complement of healthy stars. And I agree with what you said. They're 5-4 right now, but by the time they get rolling after the break, it's going to be tough for the rest of the league.
Agreed. So there's our rookie roundup. I know it was a lot. If you're still here, thank you. We've got a lot more to get into. And next, we're going to talk about the Phoenix Mercury. All right. Phoenix Mercury, a team that we've talked about a little bit the last couple of weeks on the podcasts. A player we've talked about a lot is Kahleah Copper and how she's been unlocked. And what better way to prove that than the game where they won against the Sparks, the Lynx, where Ka had that game winner, but also an incredible final kind of minute-ish. And they beat the Wings in double overtime. In case you didn't have enough excitement so far. Cal, let's talk about Ka. Let's talk about that final minute, game winner, all of that. What have you loved from her and from that game?
How can you not talk about Ka with what she did in those two incredible games, both from her and for the team pulling out those wins. And down the stretch, everyone saw the game winner, I'm sure, but let's put the clips up because her takeover started right here with a minute 16 left. And you saw a little bit of everything getting downhill to her left, right there on the next play. Now you see her getting downhill to her right. Uh, and then this next one, this is cold. Step back three, just can't stop that. Bottom.
Not on my
And
girl,
then
Bridget. Oh.
yes. And then this, the game winner. The game winner from the corner down to bang. It's so fun. Obviously, getting it done in so many different ways, even just that short amount of time. She was fully in her bag. She's a superstar. She's a finals MVP. You know she's going to show up in clutch time when it matters. And however she has to get it done, she's going to get it done. And that's what we saw. It's just amazing to watch, amazing to witness.
Yeah, Ka is one of the toughest finishers in the league, and if you're just getting introduced to the league, I highly, highly suggest you go back and watch her finals run in 2021, where she did win finals MVP, just to give you a little taste of like who she is as a player and just how fun she is to watch. But let's talk about the Phoenix Mercury in general, because when we talked about them at the beginning of the season, they were missing Brittany Griner, they missed Beck. Both were back now. How have their returns kind of helped lift the Mercury even more now with this group?
Yeah, the Mercury are 2-0 with their full healthy starting lineup, and obviously both of those are kind of by the skin of their teeth, but they're 2-0. This is going to be Captain Obvious here, but both of those players help this team a ton on both sides of the ball. And let's play those clips back real quick because I think in particular when it comes to BG, this time don't watch Ka, watch BG because look at this. Gets a screen from BG. All right. Frees her up to get down to her left. All right, next one here. Same thing. Screen, frees her up, get downhill to her right. Obviously, the step back three you're about to see, this is just all Ka. This is just Ka being a killer and making a play. But then you go to the last one, the game winner. Same thing. BG is going to get the inbound, going to get the handoff, and she's going to screen like 1.5 players here, really, to free up Ka. So 3 of those 4
Yeah.
shots, obviously, as incredible as it was from Ka, also were partially set up from BG. And I think that's something that when people think about BG and you talk about her scoring and her rim protection and all these different things, but her screening and her ability to free up players, especially when she's on a team with someone who is able to do so much with that space when you free her up, like Ka, is going to be vital for this team. And it's a really underrated part, I think, of what BG is bringing to this team and what's going to make them so dangerous, especially on that end with her back in the lineup.
Absolutely. And I can't wait for them to now be able to get those reps in together, because it's going to start to make a little bit more sense of like what this team can actually look like as a team and see how they can compete with the other kind of contenders in the league. Because I think we talked about it, but they're not really in that contender window yet. But at the same time, they have the potential to be that team that could cause a little bit of a ruckus by the time we get to the postseason. So I'm really, it's going to be really fun to continue to see BG back on the court, just with this team overall, because we've talked about it multiple times during the offseason too. I thought they had one of the most exciting off seasons of all the teams in the W. So really happy to see just like a healthy Phoenix Mercury and see what they get to look like. But any final thoughts on Ka or the Mercury before we get to these games to watch and our team of the week?
Yeah, just what you said. We've talked about how there's sort of a top 5 that have been separating themselves. But if there's anyone from 6 through 12 that is going to insert themselves into that conversation, it's the Mercury. And they clearly have the ceiling to be in that conversation. If they can consistently be in that conversation night in, night out with BG and Beck back, then it's going to make the playoff race just that much more entertaining.
We talked about it last week, but it's like we're already jumping to the playoffs. We're so excited. It's
I know
happening
I'm getting
again.
ahead of myself.
It's
I'm so
happening again. I
excited.
can feel it.
It's so exciting.
All right, let's stay to the present. Let's say to the present and give you the games to watch for this week. As you're listening to this right now, like we mentioned, Mystic Stream are in the middle of playing. We did record late today. Sorry. We were very busy. Not as busy as these athletes, but life can get kind of hectic. Lynx Aces at 10 p.m. Eastern, probably by the time this comes out. And then as well, Sparks versus Storm. All these games are on League Pass. Then tomorrow, Wednesday, June 12th, it's a perfect schedule. You get one game, Sun versus Sky, 8 p.m. Eastern on League Pass. Then on Thursday, you got 3 matchups, Dream versus Fever at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN3 and League Pass, and then Storm Wings at the same time on ESPN. And I checked, it should be on League Pass in Canada because I don't think it's on any of our national television channels. If I'm wrong, it will probably be on TSN since it's on ESPN. So for any of the Canadian listeners. Then we got Aces Mercury at 10 p.m. Eastern on Prime Video on Thursday because Thursday is Prime Video Day. Make sure you get that in your head. I say it every week. Then Friday, of course, is WNBA on Ion, Sky Mystics at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Sparks Lynx also at 7:30 p.m. Eastern because Ion loves to play games at the exact same time. But you can also watch on League Pass and do the double screen. This sounds like a lot of shade, but
at least this week they only have 2 because League Pass for some reason doesn't let you do the third screen.
Not 3 10 p.m. games.
Right. I'm excited to be able to watch every game, not, at least have every game on a screen this week because I don't actually have Ion, so I watch those games on League Pass, but when there's 3 at once, it kicks me off of the third one.
Yeah, it's just boo. But anyway.
Come on, League Pass.
All right. We got it. We made it. It's time for our team of the week. We kind of hinted at it earlier in the episode, so I don't know if you can guess it, but our team of the week is the New York Liberty. They are on a 7-game winning streak. They just defeated Connecticut. Connecticut is no longer the only undefeated team left in the league. They clinched that Commissioner's Cup final spot in the Eastern Conference. Man, oh man, the New York Liberty have come out with a completely different energy, Cal, than last year. It's something that Sab has talked about a little bit too in terms of their experience. What have you liked from them so far? What have been your thoughts on kind of this last 7-game stretch, really, where they've won every single one?
They clinched home court too in the Commissioner's Cup, not just coming out of the East, which is partly because the West is the wild, wild West and everyone's beating up on each other. But I think it is definitely part of it. What you mentioned, Sabrina talking about experience, and I think it was Sabrina the other day who mentioned when they beat the Sun that's a game that she didn't think they maybe necessarily would have won last year. Obviously, the Liberty came out and threw the first punch in the first quarter, which is what they seem to do every game. But the Sun rallied big time and came back and took a lead for a lot of that game. And then Liberty ended up being the ones who had to claw back in the end. And that took some resolve, and their experience, I think, was able to get them over that hump. But also having a healthy and active JJ this year has been a big deal for them. We've talked about her on this pod before, and it's worth just continuing to talk about her because what she's doing is awesome. She's taking more threes and making more threes than she has since her MVP year in 2021. And she just looks, with the exception of maybe a couple games where she picks up that early foul and kind of gets into foul trouble. But for the most part, she looks really engaged and ready to go, just dominant. Down low, on the perimeter, wherever, on both sides. So that's been really big. I think Kahleah Thornton's been really important for them defensively, and obviously he's been starting without Salute. So that's been big. Leonie Febish has been a really key addition for them, and her spacing, I think, off the bench has been a vital piece of why they've been able to have so much success again early this year. So time will tell if they can turn that into playoff success or, a championship, because they've had all the playoff success other than that. So that's the ultimate test. But so far, so good.
Yeah, and you talk about JJ and all of that, it's been a year in the making if you really think about it, because the whole thing last year was okay, they just assembled this team, they haven't really played together, and yes, they made it to the WNBA finals, but you could argue some of that kind of crumbled by the time they got to it against the Aces. So yeah, I think they definitely feel the difference this year. It really, really helps to have returning a lot of your team be returning pieces and continue to build off of that. It also helps that Sabrina is having I would say, her best season yet, especially because we have seen a more consistent version of her not battling an injury, which has been nice to see. So yeah, I think that's been huge for her. And it's funny because this whole episode we kind of talked about the rookies that are guards, the way that they've translated. Sabrina is a great example of that, of somebody who was absolutely phenomenal in college, went number one, then had the injuries kind of affect the way that her rookie debut started in the W. Then when she finally started to get those consistent minutes, there were still a couple of parts of her game where a lot of the same things, honestly, that we talked about with Caitlin, where it was like the decision making, the turnovers, the passing, like all this point guard stuff where Sabrina wasn't really comfortable with that stuff a year or two ago and is now starting to step more into that role because things take time and development takes time. And being able to play more with your players is very important. That takes time. And it's like your story doesn't stop when you get drafted into the W. Like there's so much more unwritten. We've talked a lot about Benijah Laney Hamilton's journey as well too. I think she's also another huge story of what you start as and what you continue to develop and evolve into. You're never going to be in your final form until you retire or whatever you measure that by. Even then, it's like, are you really? Because Maya Moore retired early, so it's like, was she in her final form? I don't know, but that's a whole nother tangent to get into for another podcast. But I think all in all to say is that you'll be okay. Everybody will be okay. It's just everything in life in basketball takes consistency, takes time, takes, that effort every single day. And then you'll be able to see your goals come to fruition. And I think that's what's happening with the Liberty right now. So that got really philosophical for me saying that Sabrina's having her best season yet.
I loved
But
it. I loved it.
we'll roll with it. We'll
Preach.
roll with it. But if you want to see the Liberty in action, we got a good one for you. Liberty play the Aces Saturday, June 15 at 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC. I can almost guarantee that will probably be on a national channel here in Canada as well, but I can tweet it out or something if people are interested in that. But Liberty versus Aces, last year's finals match. Obviously, we don't have Chelsea Gray. We'll see how Jackie Young continues to feel. I know she was back. She was feeling better. But yeah, Cal, are you excited for that matchup and for Liberty in general?
I'm so excited. We've been, waiting a month. That's the matchup everyone wanted to see. But I just want to say before we wrap up the podcast, Life Lessons with Crina has been a joy. And I think everyone should go back and listen to everything you just said again, because it's not just basketball, it's life. Everything good takes time. And sometimes you just got to take a deep breath and realize that it's going to come. It might not be here yet, but it's going to come. Whatever it is in life, going to come.
This is
Just got to
so
put in the work.
funny. This is so funny to me. That's what we're here for. Meditation, lessons, life and basketball, love and basketball, whatever you want to talk about. That's what we're here for. This is what going to therapy has done for me. It's giving me a new perspective that I can now bring to the table in our podcast episodes. So be subscribed to Coast, wherever you listen to podcasts on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. You get analysis, you get storytelling, you get stats, you get philosophy, apparently, life lessons, all of the above. What more could you ask for? I'm Crina Mustafa. You can follow me at Crina MM. You can follow Cal at CWetzel31. And we will see you next Tuesday.